God started asking us the question, what are you living for? Are you living just for yourself? Is it just about getting away from the cold? Or is there more to your life? Is there more purpose? What would it look like if we use different measuring stick for the way that we live our life? My children need to know God. They don't need to read and write. They need to know God. What is our goal with our children? How am I going to get there? When I graduated high school, I started packing up and I told my parents, yeah, I'm going to Belize. And so when I was 18, I went to Belize for the first time. And I had a 3-week ticket. And when I got there, I ended up calling my parents and said, I'm not coming back. We'll see how long I stay. And I ended up staying for 3.5 months.
No, on the chicken hole.
I will give thanks to the Lord with all my heart. I will tell of all your wonders. Psalm 9, verse 1. That whole construction season, I talked about driving to Belize the next year. I bought a truck, I bought supplies, and a friend of mine and we drove to Belize. And it was the beginning of just a love for travel. Driving through the States, driving through Mexico, driving through a country where I didn't know the language and I didn't know the culture, before GPS, before cell phones, and just the adventure of working through the things that have to happen to make that happen. That year I stayed there for 5 months. On my way back, stopped in Chihuahua, and that's where my aunt invited me to a youth retreat, and that's where I met my wife.
When my husband decided to buy a home, it was before we were married. I was in Mexico, he calls me, he says, I found 2 homes, you can choose. He says, the one is $100,000. It's complete, the house is complete. He described it and it was like, I couldn't even dream of such. He's like, you'd open drawers in the kitchen and it goes into the fridge, like it was a built-in, like a walk-in cooler or something. And then he says, and then there's the other one, it's like a matchbox. It's like old, very little, but that one is $15,000. But he says, so which one do you want? You want the big one and stay in Canada and work 20 years to pay it off? Or do you want this little box and travel every year? In the same moment he had finished his questions, I said, I want the matchbox. I want to travel with you.
You know, in every part of life, there are decisions that you make that every other decision conforms to. You can always hear that when you're talking to people, when they say, oh, I'd love to do this, I'd love to do that, but. That but is the decision that they've made that they think can't change. And so when we got married 2 years later, we made some decisions that have shaped our lives. And one of those decisions was that we wanted to travel. Everything we did, everything we decided revolved around, we're going to travel from January to April, May. And so my work has to conform to that. The way we educate our children has to conform to that. There's been a lot of opportunities in life that I've said no to because there were certain decisions that we made because of that one decision, really.
Katie, if we just listen these two.
Was is plus? Was is plus 6?
Drive.
No, drive plus 6.
Just says round to the nearest 10 and estimate the answer. So jedes von diesen?
No,
I've grown up in Mexico, and I have, I don't know, for schooling and stuff like that, we had just village school. I learned to read and write and do the basics, all in German. My sister was 4 years younger, and we'd play school when we were little. She couldn't read a thing yet, but when we would be playing, she had to be the teacher. I was a student. I'd tell her what to teach me, but I just did not like teaching. So I knew I'm not a teacher.
That's
your answer.
Are you ready?
Yep. So it's jetzt Bible memory. Proverbs 3. And so when I came to Canada, we were got married in Mexico, came to Canada, and then we had decided before that that we were going to homeschool, because I was assuming everybody in Canada was graduated grade 12 and they were also equipped of teaching their own kids, and they all spoke English well. I was very, very intimidated always. I would shy away from any get-together of women talking about curriculum, talking about things they were doing. I would just go away from it because it pressured me too much. My husband had done a good job in preparing me. We can do this at home. We don't need curriculum. We need to focus on, just the basics and just be intentional with living. And he didn't think that we needed so many hours of sitting down and doing book work, which was good for me because I am not a teacher. I think it was Edgar. I was 5 years old. I bought a few books too, and now we're going to do school as well. I'm going to try to be the teacher. And we followed the book a little bit, and he wasn't really interested, but I tried. And then so this one day it was just like, we need to learn to tell the time in the book, it said. And so I was like, well, sit down, and I'm trying to be very excited, and I'm going to teach him that. But he was just absolutely not interested. And it didn't take long. He's crying, and I just like, I knew it. I can't teach. I don't know how we're going to do this. And then I got some Play-Doh, rolled it out and made some letters and stuff, and then he started making sentences. I just said, if you put these letters together, they make a word and stuff like that. And so then we played around, and I was like, oh, and if you put an exclamation mark or a question mark, and then it's a question, like the same words in the sentence, but it turns into a different type of a sentence. And so I just doing that, just playing. When we were done, he's like, Mama, this was so much fun. You need to take a picture and show Daddy when he comes home what we did. And I was like, oh, wow, let's just play then, if that works. It's a long song. The A is silent. Two vowels together. The first one talks, the second one is silent. Sometime later, I had then just put the book aside. We don't need to learn a time. I had forgotten about that actually. And then there was this day I was nursing my baby, and And he came to me and he had asked me if he could have a candy. And I said to him, like it was kind of right after lunch and I didn't want him to have it right then. And I just said, well, at 2 o'clock, just to give him a time frame he has to wait. But he says, Mama, how will I know when it's 2 o'clock? I said, oh, I can teach you. I stopped nursing my baby right there. We went to the clock and I explained it to him. And since that day, he has known how to tell the time. And so then I just understood what Helmut was telling me about the intentional answering questions when they have the question.
A lot of schoolwork I did with Edgar. We're just over a year apart. And so a lot of the schoolwork that we did together. We were in one book of math and my mom was always there to help us and kind of do it with us. That was kind of what she did. She sat at the table and we did it all together, us three. And we finished the math book and then she said, we didn't get it. It did not make sense. We need to do it again. This whole book, we didn't get it. Like, it did not make sense. So, okay, well, let's do it again. And it was fractions. It was a whole book of fractions. And so we did the book again. We went through and we did the whole problem stuff. My mom said, we just didn't get it. It just does not make sense to us. And then she says, we got to do it again. I think we did it 3 times. 4th time, she said we still didn't get it. And we said, Mom, we already got the first time. Can we go on to the next book? So she was realizing, oh, it's me that's not getting it. They already long have it. And so that's where she learned that she doesn't have to be there constantly to teach us, or like we are already able to go ahead without her.
By faith,
we
understand
that
the worlds were framed
the worlds of things
by the word of God,
by the word of God,
so
so
that the things which are seen
that the things which are seen
were not made of things which are visible,
were not made of things
which are visible.
Um da abzuhaken. Du musst immer den drehen und dann so stehen.
As we traveled, I mean, we started having children, and you know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But as our family grew, God started asking us the question, what are you living for? Are you living just for yourself? Is it just about getting away from the cold? Or is there more to your life? About 10 years ago, I woke up in the middle of the night and I walked to the window and I looked outside into the darkness. It was November, cold, dark, and depressing. And I thought, Lord, I want to live for you. I want to do something more than just live for my own pleasure. We were living as Christians, but I just had this feeling of, I need to do more, I want to do more. And I felt so clearly in my spirit that God said, well, read my word. And I thought, that's too easy. I went back to bed in the morning, life happens. I wasn't in the word. It was a couple of nights later, I woke up again, go to the same window, ask the same question. And God said, read my word. Well, I ignored him again. And a couple of nights later, we woke up in the morning and Anna asked me, what does the Bible really mean when it says, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness? And I said, yeah, God's kind of been working on me. I think we should probably read that passage and see what that means for us. We read it over numerous times, we prayed, and we just felt this real sense of, what, we need to go talk to the kids. We went and we got the kids together, and I actually printed out those verses. You have little faith. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. The Gentiles, they seek after food, shelter, clothing. I know you need those things. But you seek after my kingdom and I will supply all your needs. And so I printed that out and I took it to the table and invited the kids around, and we asked the children for their forgiveness, because that is an essential part of restarting a relationship, is repentance. And so we asked them to forgive us for not doing as much as we could do and for not guiding them as much as we could guide them. And we said, we want to start over, we want to live with more purpose, and we want your help with that. How can we do this together? It was getting close to the time where we were going to head south, and we said to the kids, you know, we're going to go to Mexico. What are we going to do there? How about, instead of just seeing where we can be comfortable, let's see if we can find the poorest of the poor, the needy, the orphans, the widows. Let's start by finding an orphanage. Let's go to an orphanage and let's see what God will do.
Do you always sound good? Huh?
Yep. You too. Hey, you guys.
We went to the west coast of Mexico and we spent 10 days there together at a mission center, a group of us, of families. And we went out every day to different areas, did some street evangelism. We met a medical group that went out into some of the poorest areas to set up a camp and help them that way, but with the purpose of evangelism. And so we were asked to help. Anna and I became the greeters who would sit at the table where everybody had to sign in, and our children became involved in translating for the nurses and in helping in physiotherapy and in just guiding people around. And so all of our children were very much involved in everything that was going on. Sitting at that table, we were able to connect with every single person that came in. And when it was very busy, the lineup, they had to wait, and we were able to share the gospel with them or have a conversation with them, and we just found it to be a great connection.
We started going down to the Guaymas, the western part of Mexico there. We were there at a mission center. One of the guys that was coming there, he was putting a team together to go into the mountains towards the Chihuahua border. We were going to go drive as far as we could go and rent a bunch of donkeys and some mules and pack them full of Bibles and some food. For the first trip that we did, about 20 people that went in. The goal was to go in and minister to the people in the mountains there. That first trip, it was tiring because we were walking for 8 hours straight to get to the first village, crossing the river, finding the right trails to get to that village. Certainly tiring, but it was very encouraging actually, because we would get to the village and they would be very hospitable. There would be one house that would host us out of the village. We'd go out and we'd just go house to house and, hey, we're planning on showing a movie here at this person's place and give a talk a little bit. So at that designated time, lots of people would show up and to watch the movie because they didn't get to see very movies, I guess, over there. So that was a highlight for them. We would show them the film, and then afterwards, one of the leaders would preach and share the gospel with them. And so we stayed a night or two at that place, and then we moved on to another village and stayed there for a couple days and did the same thing there.
We saw the need that the people were talking about, and so we'd bring hundreds of books on child training, on family discipleship, and we started giving away these books and videos to these people. And as we did that, we started having pastors come to us and say, where are they getting these books from? We were asked to speak at a Bible school and teach a class on family, on child training, on discipleship.
Dios es nuestro cuerpo como sacrificio vivo.
We got asked so many questions that we had to re-examine. Because whenever you're asked a tough question, you have to re-examine. What do I believe? Why do I believe it? Every recipe has ingredients, and so we really have to look at the ingredients first before we can understand what the end product is supposed to look like.
Yeah, I hear it pumping.
When we look at what should a family look like, we have to look at the Bible.
I'm gonna just try to restrict some flow here and see. Is there a vice grip in that toolbox over there, Evan? Right beside. Is there a vice grip with a flat nose on it?
An observation that I've made, and this is something that really has to be pondered through, because it's not a flippant thing that I'm saying. I'm saying it with a lot of thought, that every program is the symptom of a relationship that's not functioning biblically. And I have yet to find a program that is not the case. Because when you follow it back to why is this program there, it has to do with a relationship that is not looking at God's word for the answer. That's where a lot of what I see is within the church is dealing with the symptoms of families that are not functioning biblically.
Still need something to put underneath here so that you can catch
two models of family. One model of family, they view their children as their students. What is the natural result of that is that the parent views themselves as the teacher. What is the purpose of a student-teacher relationship? Well, it's to prepare for this world. And so the focus becomes reading, writing, arithmetic, science, history, all good things, nothing wrong with that. But that becomes the focus of the relationship. And so the child grows up with the understanding that the purpose of a relationship is to prepare for this world. It's usually not a very good relationship. There's a lot of stress involved in a teacher-student relationship. There's some children that really enjoy being a student, but the majority don't. Now, on the other hand, there's a model of family where the parents view their children as their disciples. And the natural outcome of that is that the parents view themselves as the disciplers. So naturally, what becomes the focus of that? Well, to know God.
Zusammen und dass du leitest uns, hoffentlich zum Dich suchen hinaus, dass wir tun. Wir würden einander aufbauen und Segen sein zu Leuten um uns. Danke fürs Essen. Amen.
That's what I did before, and then you said more. No, Evan said more. Yeah, I know. Okay.
What's the ETA on my printer? Saturday? Lettuce?
So when you look at a family and say, what is the purpose of family? Well, the purpose of family is to raise children that will live for God. And how does that work itself out? What is the purpose of worship? What is the purpose of my relationship to God? What is the purpose of work? What is the purpose of having a spouse? What is the purpose of having children? What is the purpose of going on vacation? What is the purpose of going shopping? Am I going with my physical, with my heart, my physical eyes, or am I going with the spirit and with the spiritual eyes of building the kingdom of God? As these parents have the focus of discipling their children as Jesus discipled his disciples, walking and talking, doing all the things we do, living life the way we live life, doing all of the things that everybody else does, work and shopping and vacation, and as we do all those things, what is our purpose in doing them? Having our little disciples follow us to see what is our interaction with the world. We're not keeping ourselves from the world, but we are in the world with our children, guiding them through those things and teaching them, look, this is the effect of sin, but the grace of God, that's why Jesus came. We're not raising children. We're raising disciples, and we're raising adults, right? I don't want to speak baby talk to my children. I want to speak the real language. And so these children who grow up being seen as disciples and following their parents for the purpose of seeing their parents interact with the world for the gospel, grow up with the understanding that our purpose in life is to be prepared for eternity, to love God and love our neighbor. And when they grow up and when they have their own children, their first response will still be, wow, I do not feel equipped for this. But the only way to be more equipped is to be more like Christ and model more what it means to be Christ to my child.